Today, we're going to be reviewing the Fischer Defense. That is a line that stems from the accepted variation and then pawn to d6, created by the GOAT himself, Bobby Fischer. It's actually funny. The way the Fischer Defense was created was he played against the King's Gambit and lost horribly to Boris Spassky, and then locked himself in his room, as all chess players do whenever they lose a chess game. And then he came out with the Fischer Defense saying, "I refuted the King's Gambit." Now, we are going to look at fun ways to deal with the Fischer Defense. I do recommend going bishop to c4, just getting ahead in development. And the point is, if they mix up their lines, if they go g5 and try to copycat the main line with this pawn d6 move that opens up the light squared bishop, it just doesn't work out. You go h4, and again, we went over all the other lines. They should push, as you know. The difference here, though, is that we already have the bishop on c4, so it's that much more powerful. The only move they have in this position is knight to h6, guarding the f7 pawn, at which point we would just gain full center control. Their knight is misplaced. We are going to win the pawn back on f4 with full center control. We have everything we would want in this position. You might think, hey, isn't my knight getting trapped? You already know we don't really care about that knight. You would just take the pawn on f4, and then after they take, you can actually take with either piece, but bishop takes is better. Point is that if they go bishop e7, you win the knight, and if they go queen d7, you castle. And I mean, just look at these bishops. I mean, black is not going to get away with that. So Fischer Defense, what they have to do is they have to go pawn h6, preparing g5, and then you go pawn h4, stopping g5. Now, typically, they're going to develop their knight to attack this pawn, and you're going to go knight c3 to defend the pawn. Attack, defend, chess. Knight takes e4. If knight takes e4, do not fall into the mistake of taking and falling into this Peart's trap or Perk trap that is common in that opening. Go queen e2, pinning the knight. You're going to end up a piece and win the game. Pins are annoying. So knight c3, attacking the pawn. Now they're going to be like, hey, you overextended your h-pawn. Let me just sneak in there and pin the knight to the queen. And you're like, okay, well, I get full center control. I'm going to win the pawn back on f4. What are you going to do about it? They might say, I am going to defend the pawn on f4 with the knight. Sensible, except it's not. You now uncork knight to e5. Point of knight e5 is to blunder your queen, but at the same time, deliver a checkmate. So is it really a blunder? Bishop takes f7. Their only move is king e7, and now knight to d5. A very fun checkmate that can stem from the Fischer Defense. So you might be like, hey, that's not forced, and you would be correct. They could take the knight. We would then take the bishop. They have to retreat this knight to f6, and very important move, you go queen to f5, threatening things in their territory. They're now going to take, and I recommend the move pawn to e5. This is the funnest line. What do they have here? Well, they cannot move the knight. They get checkmated. So there is that. They have to take the knight on c3 for any type of game. And then we take the knight on f6. Very easy for black to go wrong here. For example, queen takes f6. Do not trade queens. Go queen to c8. They cannot go queen to d8 because do you see the tactic? Deflection. Bishop takes f7 and you win the queen. They have no discovered check because the pawn is on c3. We are good. What to do if they take with the pawn? First, I want to pause and just bask in their awesome pawn structure. Tripled pawns, look at that. That is something else. But don't take the pawn. They are tripled. There's no reason to. Get developed. This opening is all about development. You might say, hey, you just blundered. Queen d4 does pick up a bishop. I'll give you that. But can they really take the bishop? They can't. If queen takes bishop, you're just going to unleash an overwhelming attack on them. Rook to e1 check. If they go bishop e7, thank you very much. That is checkmate in one move. That is a pinned bishop. What else do they have? Well, they can move their king. Let's say they move their king to d8, as that is the only king move. You go queen takes f6. It is a fork, but it is actually a lot worse than a fork. Obviously, they cannot block with their bishop. You're just going to lose. If they go king up, I guess would be the other move. No need to take the rook. Again, all about activity. They are going to get checkmated, and there's nothing that they could do about it. So, yeah, very trappy line. What else could they do? Let's take a look. Well, maybe they're going to take on b2, be like, I see fork, I give fork, and then many things you could do. I recommend bishop takes f7 check. Forcing lines are good lines. So king takes f7, f takes g7, I c fork, I give fork. That is basically the memo. They cannot go king g8 for many reasons, one of which is queen to e6 check. They cannot take the pawn on g7 because this is going to lead to checkmate with a battery. Good battery. What else could they do? They could go king back to e8. It's not going to really make a difference. We make two queens. They make two queens, but we give checkmate. So we win with 4 queens on the board on move like 15 or something. Pretty crazy. And yeah, you are just winning. I suppose they could go queen f6 check, but then you're just going to take and make another queen. No arguments there. We are crushing. And so this is a very fun line in the Fischer defense. Now, if they, let's see, if you go d4 and they're not buying it, they're like, okay, you can have the pawn with the full center. You tell them, thank you very much, and you just take the full center. They might go knight h5 now, and you don't have the same trick. So here, I recommend the move queen to d2. Point is, which side are we going to castle on? The less they know, the better. The harder it is to stop our attack. Typically, I like queen side a lot. And then they're just going to probably buckle under pressure. Like, for example, knight takes bishop. Why else would they go knight h5? Queen takes. And here you are threatening checkmate. And bishop takes knight does not stop checkmate. Queen d7 does stop checkmate. But then just bishop takes pawn. They have to take our bishop. We take their bishop. And this is crushing. You're stopping them from castling. You're going to castle. You're going to have the rook on the f-file. You can really castle either way. You're still winning. So, yeah, these are some cool lines against the Fischer defense. I do recommend this bishop c4 stuff. Just know that if they go g5, let me get back to if they go g5 towards the beginning of the game. Guess I could reset it. So, Fischer defense, bishop c4. If they go g5, just going to be a better version of the previous line. So they have to go h6, and then everything we looked through can ensue. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you crushed the Fischer defense, and thank you for watching.